welcome to Season 4 of the Coffee and Geography podcast. The aim of the show is to get to know, explore, and celebrate the diverse and intersectional range of people and their love for the world. Join your host, Kit Marie Rackley, and have fun exploring all the myriad of ways guests can connect their lives to geography.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Coffee and Geography podcast and this special set of episodes regarding the Climate Ambassador Scheme. Now this intro is repeated for all these special episodes, so if you've heard it already then please do go ahead and skip to around the 6-minute mark and you can get straight into me talking with one of my Climate Ambassador colleagues. But if you're listening to this for the first time, please stick with me. So I am in a new role as the East of England Coordinator or East of England Regional Hub Manager for the Climate Ambassador Scheme. So I think what is a good idea is to tell you about the Climate Ambassador Scheme and then you can get on listening to the other regional hub managers that I'm interviewing. So now we want everybody to support impactful climate action, right? We know that the climate crisis is so important today. So early years, schools, colleges and other education settings across the UK, we know that you're eager for help in delivering better climate education, to mitigate climate impact, improve your biodiversity and adapt to the extremes of weather associated with the changing climate. And you know, folks, that I've made a lot of mention about climate change being a safeguarding issue. Now, by helping make climate and sustainability education more widely available to all learners, we can all help to develop the citizens and workforce needed for the green transition and for a sustainable future. Now, Climate Ambassadors is a 2-year project funded by the Department for Education as part of its climate change and sustainability education strategy, and this states that by 2025, all education settings in England are expected to have a designated sustainability lead and a climate action plan. So the idea of the Climate Ambassador Scheme is to have volunteers who become climate ambassadors to provide free support to education settings in England to develop and deliver impactful climate action plans which cover 4 themes set out by the DFE, right? So they are decarbonisation, adaptation and resilience, nature and biodiversity, climate education and green skills. Okay, so what I'm going to do now for the next couple of minutes is be specific to groups of people who will be interested in schemes. So listen in very carefully if you work in an education setting, if you're an employer or charity, or you want to become a climate ambassador yourself, which is something you're very, very keen about. So first things first, let's talk to everybody in the education setting, which I know is most of my listeners here. So I've already mentioned that in an ideal world, we want all schools and education settings in England to have a climate action plan and a designated sustainability lead, right? Now, what you can do through the Climate Ambassador Scheme is that you can request support to get started in creating and progressing your climate action plan. Doesn't matter where on that process you are. You can identify ways to decarbonise your operations, saving money, reducing emissions, etc. Plan and adapt for the impacts of climate change like overheating, flooding, to minimise the risk of disruption to learning. Increase biodiversity across your settings estate and improve access to green space for your learners and your staff. And provide advice on how you can weave climate education and green careers inspiration across teaching and learning activities and upskill your staff to build their confidence in teaching about climate and sustainability. Now, climate ambassadors go through training and will be fully DBS checked. They will have undertaken mandatory training and have an access to a suite of additional training to complement their existing expertise and skill sets. So there is no reason why you shouldn't get in touch with us to see what they can do for your setting. Now, if you're an employer or a charity or a network or whatever, we know that increasing number of you are doing outreach to schools, whether it's for recruitment or because you've got a local school which you get a lot of youngsters coming, or you want to promote your business, whatever it is, right? But we know that there are experts across all sectors who can support this, right? So maybe you have an organisation which can help with sustainability and environmental consultancy, decarbonisation, energy efficient strategies within operations, climate change adaptation, resilience, mental health, nature recovery, conservation, biodiversity. You can perhaps help with the curriculum in terms of how to weave in climate education or skills development, leadership development, whatever it is, right? There's so many things I can list there. So employers, you will have access to a structured, relevant and meaningful volunteer option for your employees. Okay, and this supports what you may already do through community engagement, social value goals, etc., provides employees with opportunities to give back and to further their own positive sustainability impact and enhance their climate skills and knowledge. And finally, if you want to be a climate ambassador, that would be amazing. You've already heard that we mentioned about there's training, there's your DBS check that you get for free and everything, you know, and you don't have to be an expert in any one of those 4 things that I said. You may just be passionate about the environment, right? But you'll get to help schools develop their sustainability and climate leadership skills. You'll get to help them through your knowledge and expertise to tackle real-world sustainability and climate challenges. You can make a genuine difference to your community, support education settings, inspire future generations to give positive solutions to environmental challenges, and gain a sense of achievement as you see your advice and ideas put into practice. Plus, of course, it looks amazingly fantastic on your CV. So find out more by looking at the show notes or by going to climateambassadors.org.uk. That's climateambassadors.org.uk. Well, there you go, folks. Thanks for sticking with me. And now we will move on to talking to all my wonderful colleagues, the other regional hub managers in Leeds in the Climate Ambassador Scheme. Enjoy the listen. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Coffee and Geography. So, number 3 of the Climate Ambassadors special mini-series then. Moving... Let's see. So we were in the northwest with Cormac. We came down south to the southeast with Gemma, and now we're going back up, not quite north, but neither of it south, because it's East Midlands and Matilda Crane. Hey, Matilda.
Hello.
Yeah. So we're going all right. Yeah, we're going all around England, and I guess you're effectively my next door neighbour, really, aren't you?
Essentially, yeah, pretty close. Yeah. Although it's a nightmare to get between us.
Oh goodness me! Yeah. So we've got this thing. If you're not familiar with the geography of the United Kingdom, folks, most of you are, because most of my listenership is. But there's this. If you picture a map or grab one up of the British Isles, you'll see that the east of England is a bit like an ear shape, like your left ear, right? And you've got a bit where the ear dips down and attaches to the head. And that's a body of water called a wash. And the wash is a big inlet of water which separates the East Midlands with the east of England. So we feel like we're neighbours, but we're so far away, haven't we? But
we are, yeah.
About 3 hours drive. I mean, when I picked you up, we went to York. Was it 3 hours? I think I was
easily, yeah. And train connections are a nightmare. So.
Goodness, yeah. Not even going to get that. Right, folks, we can get on that soapbox, but instead I will introduce Matilda for you. So Matilda is the Climate Ambassador's East Midlands Regional Hub Manager. She describes herself as a tree-hugging, bird-loving, slightly bonkers individual that has a passion for the environment, sharing wonders of creation with others. Having followed geography throughout her educational journey, she has worked in a number of different environmental climate-related roles, as well as spending some time in the classroom inspiring young people to be curious about the planet. Perfect. And when Matilda is not at work, you can find her outside in all types of weather, with a head in a book or at church, as her Christian faith is a big driver of her passion to look after the world. That's a lovely intro.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So, what are you? Have you brought a brew with you today, or
I have?
What are you drinking today?
Well, I thought, this is coffee and drunk, but I've had my coffee this morning and I couldn't bring myself to have another one. So I'm a big tea fanatic. I bought myself along a nice green teapot that has a tea bag in it, but I'm drinking green tea from my countryside cow mug. Yes, it's a Dragonfly green tea, Dragonfly being the brand. It's called Pure Green Mountain.
Dragonfly. Right, folks, we're putting that on the sustainability map for you to judge its sustainability credentials. So you say Dragonfly Tea, was it?
It's called Dragonfly Tea, the brand, yes. Cool. And this one is organic green tea called Pure Green Mountain.
So that is very on brand then, isn't it? Because you've got a green teapot, you're drinking green tea, and your mug is the countryside, and it's all green. So
there you go.
And actually, are you wearing a green top?
I am. I'm actually wearing two. I'm wearing a green jumper and a green t-shirt. So that was not intentional.
Yeah. I mean, you can get away with it anyway. I mean, it is an audio podcast, so
exactly.
All right. Yeah. So, That's brilliant. So then, well, let's talk a bit about your spatial identity then, the kind of the standard question at the start of these things. So as we've already described, you're based up there, up there. Yeah, it's the Midlands. It's not up there at all. It's neither up there or down there. But anyway, compared to me, you're in the East Midlands. So your base of operations as the climate ambassador, East Midlands regional hub manager is it's not the University of Not, it's more like the Nottingham Universities, because they're working in partnership, aren't they?
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I think you're kind of like are you with University of Nottingham? Is that the
technically yes?
Hold your purse strings.
Yeah, I'm employed by the University of Nottingham, and they're the sort of, that's where everything sits legally, I suppose. Yeah. But I actually work for Universities for Nottingham, so that's a part we have between the University of Nottingham and Nottingham Trent University in the city centre. So it's essentially both. So I split my time between, well, working from home mostly, but I go to both campuses on a regular basis. Yeah,
because you're actually a little bit down the road, aren't you, from Nottingham? You're in the Newark area. So so the question that I like to ask is kind of a few things. One is that, how Matilda today has been informed by where you've been, where you live now, where you've experienced. So all these kind of spatial places and you've experienced, how has that formed Matilda, the person today?
Well, that's a tough question.
It always is.
Yes. Well, I grew up in the South, so I was born in London, actually, and lived in London when I was very small. I don't really remember it very much. My parents worked there, that's where they met, and Dad continued to work in London until about 2 years ago. So I actually grew up in a town called Maidenhead, so most people will know where Windsor is because of Windsor Castle, and essentially Windsor and Maidenhead were one in the same. We like to call Windsor our backyard. But yes, I know we like to say that, and then people just think we're a bit stuck up. But hey ho, that's fine. So grew up in the South, very much South, and that was about it in terms of things like going on holiday. Even we were a big camping family, so we did a lot of camping. But it was, hike over to Cornwall, South Coast kind of vibes. So spent most of my time. I'd say definitely below Nottingham and below the Midlands for the majority until I then went to university. So came up in 2016, I'm pretty sure, to do my undergraduate at the University of Nottingham. I didn't really consider going further north either, which was interesting because I thought, maybe that was because I am quite a homebody. We're a very tight-knit family and I didn't want to be too far away. But actually, I fell in love with the campus at Nottingham. So ended up doing an undergraduate there, stayed on and did a master's at Nottingham as well. And at that point, the dreaded COVID hit, which I'm sure people talk about all the time. And so that came along, and essentially I was stuck. I decided not to go home, which was a big decision, actually. My family didn't understand completely, but for various reasons, I decided to stay in Nottingham through that time. And in that process, met my husband. So I'm still here, which is fascinating. He grew up in a village called Ravenshead, which is slightly north of Nottingham, sort of halfway between Nottingham and Mansfield. Also went to university at Nottingham. So he's very Midlands and nowhere else. But it just, that's the way it worked. And here I am today. So it's essentially South, Midlands, and that's it.
Yeah.
The big influential places in my life anyway.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I've asked this question of people before who live in the Midlands and work in the Midlands, and I always get really different, interesting answers. But perhaps this is a question more for your husband rather than for you. But is there a sense? Are you more? Do people around there think they're more south, they're more north, or they're just an identity onto their own? Because like I get so many different answers to this question. I wonder what your husband's thinks about. Is he, is he like, to coin the Beatles phrase, he's a real nowhere man, or is he, or does he, what does he feel about being someone from the Midlands?
Yeah, interesting. I think because of where the village he grew up in was quite an affluent area, and I think. he doesn't sound like he's from the Midlands. So if people sort of think of that classic, Nottinghamshire or Derbyshire and the Mansfield accent type, proper Midlands, he goes down he says grass and things like that. But that's essentially the extent of the twang. So I think he wouldn't call himself a northerner. I very much think if you're from the Midlands, you are from the Midlands, but I would still identify as a southerner.
Okay, right. Yeah.
Partly because of how I sound. I think everyone, they're like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, but I refuse to be called a northerner just because I live here. I think as lovely as the north is.
Yeah. So, the kind of regarding being there for the regional hub manager for the East Midlands, then, so you're bringing in kind of quite a lot of this. So you've got a strong identity with the East Midlands because of your connections, your university and things like that. But you're also coming up from the south. So the thing that I asked Cormac and Gemma, and I'll ask everybody else is kind of like, what do you feel is all this going to bring to the East Midlands? So I guess the fact that you've now got a strong connection to the East Midlands and you went to University of Nottingham, kind of like, how are you going to try and like take that and say, right, I think this is how I can really run with things here in the East Midlands, because Cormac's got a very strong identity now with Manchester because he's been there for 20 years or so, and Gemma's like always been in the southeast. So, but for you're kind of like, you've moved up there and now you've got a kind of almost a neo identity, I guess. I made that up on the spot. I don't even know if it exists, from the East Midlands. So how is that going to inform your role as the regional hub manager?
That's very, very interesting. And I think it is different because I'm not from here. But I think what I have learned first and foremost about our region of the East Midlands, and this is purely through studying at an institution at Nottingham, is that the research and innovation that goes on within our area, particularly in sustainability and climate, things like hydrogen is a massive, they've got bids for hydrogen clusters and things up here. And I think that side of things, the really technical, operational research and innovation side is huge. And I think brings a real gem to what we can do within this program and who can get involved, particularly those people who are quite technical or who maybe they focus so much on what they're doing, but actually really want an opportunity to say, look at what I'm doing, let me help you in inspiring you some other way. And I think the other thing I've learned about those that live in the Midlands and what it means to identify as a Midlander, I don't know if I've just made that up. I have no idea. I'm going to say Midlander. Is that there's such a it's community. Everything is built around community. And I think I look at Derbyshire and there are some extremely good sort of community energy groups on the ground. It's all about, centralizing things that are local, that meet the needs of where you are, who you are, etc., etc. Everyone's accepted. There's no, you can't come and join our group or whatever for various reasons. It's friendly, it's open, and actually that's the beauty of being here and being able to do this project here. I think is because everyone's very willing to get involved, and it fits everybody. I think that's the other thing, is that you don't need to be an academic. You don't have to have had a PhD in, let's go back to the hydrogen and decarbonisation and that kind of stuff. But actually, if you're just someone who has a passion, especially for young people, and creating a better future for everybody, then that's why the Midlands is so well placed to have this as a programme. Yeah.
So is there anything specifically that you've come across, or you're obviously, as I've said in the last two chats, obviously we don't know anything concrete yet. We're still quite new, but some of us have got really concrete plans or ideas. So is there anything you can tell us which you think, or for the East Midlands, like, oh, this is going to be really exciting, or I had an amazing chat and we've got plans to do X, Y, Z, whether it's with a local authority, whether it's with a university or a school setting or a company. Is there anything happening in the East Midlands which is really kind of thinking, oh, I can't wait for this?
Yeah, there are various different things. I think we are all at the early stages of those conversations. I was at a a festival called Green Hustle that we host in Nottingham at the weekend. And it's all about climate action, essentially. There's a big stage, there's music, there's lots of different people. So check it out, Green Hustle, very good. Happens once a year in the summer. And I was there just from a climate ambassadors recruitment point of view, and had some really interesting chats. And the thing that has sort of popped up for me, if we've got several schools, sort of individual schools, but also that are part of multi-academy trusts who have been saying, we've wanted to do this for so long. We just didn't know where to start. And that's where we come in. And it's sort of, they are so excited. I was speaking to a languages teacher. I've spoken to, particularly in Leicestershire, actually moving down, they've got a whole school eco schools program and they're on board, which is absolutely brilliant. So everyone's getting excited. And then in terms of recruitment, I think what's been fascinating here is the NHS. So we've had a lot of buy-in from the NHS, the Nottingham University's Hospital Trust, for example. Their whole climate team has essentially said, the whole climate team, their spokeswoman who I met has said, send me the details, let's get our team involved and train them up to be climate ambassadors. So it's not just specifically, people working in the school or people working directly in sustainability roles. Actually, there's sustainability in everything. There's climate in everything. And so things like the NHS, they're people as well. I think that's what we really, really need. It goes back to that Midlands community. People want to help. And so, yeah, that's a great avenue that we're starting to explore because they're huge. We've got so many. We've got the big QMC, the university hospital. We do a lot of work with children, linking up with education within NHS and things like that. So that's a really exciting opportunity I'm looking forward to getting stuck into.
I've just had a quick peek at some of these things that you're talking about. So first of all, you're absolutely right. People have got to go look at that Green Hustle event because if it is as colourful and as vibrant as the website itself, my goodness, it looks fabulous.
It was brilliant.
So, yeah. Also, someone's got a model about. It's from the. I can't see from the picture, but someone from must be the Rivers Trust. It says your river starts here, and they've got a model of somebody's house with a mock cloud on top of it.
Yeah,
I think they can turn it on. Yeah. They can, because I can see a pipe coming out of the model. So this person obviously fills the cloud with water and shows actually, well, this is how the journey starts. That is brilliant. Oh, get that person on as a climate ambassador for sure. Take that model into schools. Yeah, I can see the stage with the amps and the music decks and people. Yeah, oh, that's brilliant. And then you've got I come across an article. Leicester's eco schools are leading the way. So I'll put a link to in the show notes so people can read that. And yeah, there's an actual full page and plan on Nottinghamshire Healthcare's NHS Foundation Trust website titled Sustainability at Nottinghamshire Healthcare, Our Journey to Net Zero.
Exactly. Yeah. So they know what they're doing, and they're a group of people who are very willing to share that and help others on their way, whether that be, internally, but they can take their skills elsewhere. So really excited.
And these three things, particularly the NHS one, are perfect examples, as you already just said, that climate change is a intersectional, interdisciplinary issue. Yeah, there's not a and one of the things that I've been working here in the East of England. I mean, we've been encouraged to start, with our immediate institution and then kind of work out from there. So here in the East of England, what I've been doing at the University of East Anglia is I've been identifying modules and courses at the university that students do, where there can be, using my expertise as an ex-geography teacher and my expertise in climate and how it all links to systems and economics and social stuff, and then identifying, well, where are they probably going to be talking about climate change, and getting in contact with those course leaders and saying, do you allude to climate change or anything like that? Have you had discussions with your youngsters? I know some of them might be mature students, but they're students with regards to this kind of stuff. And then also talking to the careers department at the UEA to say, right, when you get students come up to you wanting to look for volunteering opportunities. And so there you go. And then it's courses that you may not think of, like healthcare, the NHS, and the Norfolk and Norwich University Hospital and their NHS Foundation Trust, they have a strong sustainability kind of thing as well. So I'll be in touch with them. So folks, if you're listening and thinking, I love the environment, you're listening to this podcast, a Coffee and Geography podcast, because you're interested and you're keen of the environment, right? And the people's interactions with the environment and each other. So if you're listening to this podcast, you are a candidate to be a climate ambassador or a candidate to engage with climate ambassadors. Every single one of you, right? If you're in England, because I know this doesn't expand beyond that at the moment. So until and Matilda has just gone and done that. Yeah. So as giving you an example, work in the NHS, do it. Norfolk and Waveney Mind are another great people. They've been doing a lot of work on mental health and eco-anxiety, and so they're people who have been. So if anyone interested in psychology, anyone interested in social care, on social services and stuff like that, we need you as climate ambassadors as well. Because this is has a big mental element to it as well. So yeah, what a perfect example. Yeah, and so I'll put those links in the chat in the show notes, and then people can have a look.
Great.
Yeah. So moving on a little bit, so kind of like segueing with your work today and kind of you as a person. So a few weeks ago, before I started this special series, I had a really interesting chat with someone called Will Duffy, who is describes himself as a small town pastor just outside of Denver, Colorado, right? So we talked a lot about how science and religion actually, there are so much more things in common and more things that they support and connect with than they don't. There's a lot of rhetoric that science is at odds with religion, but in my day-to-day work through climate science, stuff like that, it's something I actually rarely come across, that they're at odds with each other. And folks may have, I think it was Sir David Attenborough actually that had that quote. It said, if it was a God that created the world and set evolution on its path, I'm paraphrasing here, if there was a God that created the world and set evolution off its path, I don't see that as incompatible at all, kind of thing. I love that kind of frame of mind. So I'll ask you the same question as I asked Will Duffy a few weeks ago, and that is for you, how do you see elements of your faith and elements of the science and stewardship of the world? Where do you see those two things combine?
Yeah, interesting. I could talk for days about this topic.
I knew you could.
My master's research was on precisely this. Personally, I think this all stems. So I've grown up a Christian in a Christian household, so it's just what I know, and I made the decision for myself that actually this is what I believe, and hence my faith today. And I think my first sort of link with the environment is, I'm sat in a conservatory at the moment, so I've got glass all around me, and I've got birds flying around, I've got trees, I've got flowers on the table, things like that. And I spend so much time in nature, and I look at the intricate beauty and how it all works, and I just think that personally, I don't think it could just have happened. So I like to think about science and faith and religion as they go hand in hand. And it's almost like, the science is the how of stuff and how this works, and my faith is the why. Almost. Right, yeah, so, it exists, and this is how it all exists. Things like evolution, I don't disregard that at all. I do think things evolve and adapt and whatever. The Big Bang, I don't think it's complete load of nonsense or anything like that. But I think that personally there was someone, as in God, who as you said, started it on its journey. And I believe that we've got reasons as to why this all exists, why I'm here on this planet, and why, therefore, I've got a responsibility to be that steward. And I think it is interesting with sort of looking back into history at things like the relationship between religion and the environment. A lot of people would actually sort of say, well, the causes of all of the degradation we see today are because of, Christians in the past, with their rhetoric on what it says in the Bible and things like that, saying, you are to be controlling of the land and things like that. But I think sometimes things get lost in translation. You do have to properly look back at this, the old Hebrew, Greek, etc., which I'm.
But there's equal arguments for the opposite, isn't it? Is that there's so many people out there who say the abandonment of faith is what is causing it. So that's the thing I really love about kind of religion and faith and stuff like that, is that there are so many different interpretations, and it's that search for commonality, which I find beautiful. Anyway, sorry, I just interject that.
No, that's fine. No, absolutely. And I 100% agree with you. I think if people today, and we know it from data and statistics, that less and less people now have a faith of any kind, whether that be a Christian faith or anything else.
I'm a part of that statistic. Yeah,
exactly.
I was once Catholic and now atheist. So I'm a data point of one in that thing that you just said.
Yeah, and I'm not by any means saying that those that don't have a faith are going to be way worse at being unsustainable and things like that. But I do think that for me, it's an absolute driver for what I do, because I see the beauty, and I think this is why would we want to lose this? 2, I didn't create anything. This isn't me. My garden might look nice, but the actual plants and the way everything functions didn't come out of my own brain. No way ever could I have thought up any of this. And actually, I just feel it's respectful. And I guess it goes back to the biblical teaching of, there are verses in the Bible that talk about even the skies and the trees sing joy and then things like that. So everything sort of rejoices and praises in that way. And to me, that's just really powerful and personal. And it's my way of sort of giving back and saying, actually, it's a way of me serving. It's a way of me saying thank you. Equally, I am rubbish at doing stuff sometimes. So
well, we are human, yeah.
Exactly. We're not perfect. And that's okay. Got to stop beating ourselves up so much, I think, sometimes about it. But I'd say the biggest driver is probably my faith. I do sometimes sit and have this sort of internal dialogue with myself about, if I hadn't have grown up in a Christian family, or I hadn't experienced or be exposed to Christianity and never become a Christian personally, would I have had the same thoughts about the environment and things like that? So I don't know the answer to that. I probably never will. I like to imagine I would, because I'm one of those people that I would like to be outside all the time, forget computers and technology, but I don't know. So I guess that is why I do what I do today, and part of the journey that I've been on.
Yeah, and I've been very, very fortunate for this podcast that I've had chats with various people of various different faiths, beliefs, religions. So just a couple of examples, like Jasmine Qureshi, who is a trans Muslim person, who she gave a fantastic, really insightful kind of about how both her trans and her Muslim identity kind of like works its way into the absolute passion, the work she does in conservation of biological organisms and things like that. So and then you've got the Indian actor Adil Hussain, who talks about the Indian religion and culture and how that feeds into kind of thinking of things like trees as looking at a tree as a primordial grandmother, for example. And that was so intriguing. And the way I look at it is that the discovery for me that Christianity or Catholicism wasn't for me and atheism was, at least it's come about honestly in the same way you have come about your faith honestly, and that for me is what's important. So and I think what's so great, like working with folks of all kinds of faiths and religions, is that we all want to learn the same thing, but we come from a different perspective, and there are ways of thinking that you will have that I have lost because of my change of faith, that brings in a perspective that I've lost. So without someone like you on a team, or without someone who may be Muslim or Sikh or of an indigenous religion on the team, there is that perspective and framing that we don't get, and therefore we can't come to the solution that actually works best for the environment and works best for society. So so even though I'm someone who doesn't subscribe to a religion myself, I appreciate how it can be, such a wonderful way of lensing and framing things. And and like I said a few weeks ago to Will Duffy, it's like, well, science will never be able to answer anything, because good science actually comes up with more questions than answers. And because you're always going to have more questions than answers, that's where faith comes in, because without faith, there is, I would argue that quite a lot of scientific endeavor and scientific thought has resulted from a leap of faith or a question of faith.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't matter what that faith is, whether it's religious faith, whether it is introspective faith, whether it is, whatever it is, right? It doesn't have to be just religious. And so that's what I think is quite beautiful, and which is why I subscribe to intersectionality, which is why I subscribe to everybody living their purest best self in a way that kind of works and when we get together, we're like this big force. So my personal people who use religion for division, I don't think they're truly religious people, to be honest, but that's my opinion.
No, that's a totally fine opinion to have. And I think the way you framed that is absolutely beautiful, and the sort of bringing everything together in my first sort of job after I'd finished my studies many years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, can't remember now. I don't even know how old I am half the time. But I worked for a company called Faith Invest. It was a sort of a new charity. Essentially, we were set up by at the time Prince Philip and his religious advisor to the environment. It was a small team, but I worked on something called the Faith Plans program, and it was originally just myself. But I think through the couple of years I was doing that, and we essentially were making environmental action plans with on the grounds faith groups and communities across the world from all faith perspectives. And I think I learned an awful lot in my time there. I worked really closely with a Buddhist group. I got to read some of their text on what Buddhism and the environment mean to each other, and it blew my mind. So much more of the sort of the spiritual side of nature, and what that means to be a human with nature, not just around it or sort of looking at it, but actually I am nature myself. This is me. It was absolutely fascinating, and those 2 years did definitely change my perspective, even as a Christian, of nature and faith. I worked with all the faiths. Some of that I'd never even come across. I did a lot of work with Shinto faith, for example. And
interesting.
And it is great. I mean, and it's been taken right up to the top. You've got the United Nations Environment Program, the Faith Environment Program, whatever it's called. I can't remember these things, but it's a big thing. And actually, I think it's really important. Even if we are a person of no faith, we don't subscribe to one like yourself, but it's just fascinating to hear other people's perspectives. It teaches us a lot. We become more worldly, and just more respectful of everything as well, which I think we need some more of in this planet at the moment.
The more we all speak to each other, the more that we actually find we've all got in common. It's like speaking to Jasmine, for example, so many things in common with her, even though I'm not Muslim. Speaking to Adil, so many things in common with him, even though I'm not Hindu or Punjab or whatever, and it's just I wouldn't be a geographer if I didn't embrace all of that, 100%. And it's just the wonderful palette of existence, really, isn't it? And color. So, which is why I always go around like having, when I show like the rainbow pride flag and stuff like that, it's not a representation of just gender or sex. It's also a representation of the wonderful color, diversity of color in the whole planet. So that's what it represents for me. Right. We'll move on a little bit more to go now completely about you, and spilling the beans now. So here comes my little spill the beans soundbite there. So on here you say, I am a bit of a hopeless romantic, and this is brilliant, right? Sometimes I think I should have been born in the era of Jane Austen, waiting for Mr. Darcy to come and sweep me off my feet. Strolls in the park, afternoon tea, endless books. What more could you want? Come on then. Right. So Mr. Darcy, I think even the Americans listening to us can probably know who Mr. Darcy is, but if you do you picture yourself then as a wannabe Emma Thompson or Keira Knightley or something?
Dear, I think so. I have my moments for sure. I almost considered when we were getting married, I did find a sort of, Jane Austen-esque wedding dress. I decided against it at the end. No, I think I don't know why. I've just, no one else in my family was a big Jane Austen fan. I think I got wind of the stories and her writing quite early on as a young person. I fell in love with the history of that era. And there's Jane Austen, and then there's what I like to term Regency trash, which is basically just all about what Jane Austen type vibes, but not as traditional, if you like, slightly more sketchy. And I do tend to read quite a few of those in my downtime. But I just love it. I love the whole just history of what goes on in those periods. I do think it is rather silly at times. It's another world, and I do think, if that was me there now, I would definitely be a rebellious sort of Elizabeth Bennet type. Head in a
That
book.
was going to be my next question. Which of the Bennet sisters are you?
I think I would definitely be Elizabeth. I absolutely love my relationship with my father. My dad is very much like that in the story, which is interesting. But I am quite a strong character. I can be, and I would definitely be not walked over like her older sister Jane, bless her, as lovely as and pretty as and whatever as she was. But yeah, I think Pride and Prejudice is definitely my favourite, which is probably the most well known, but I just love the story and things like that. But yeah, I'll watch. Well, do you want to know a very sad fact about this whole thing? So the 2005 version, the film version with Keira Knightley in it, I have watched 33 times. And this is not something I admit, I'm not necessarily proud of it, but anytime it's on the television, it's constantly on streaming platforms. And I essentially watch it every year on my birthday. It's like a birthday tradition. I now force poor old Zand, my husband, to watch it with me, much to his dismay. But so I'm slightly obsessed. Let's leave it there, I think.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh well. Okay. That is definitely spilling the beans admitting to that. That's for sure. And we've had some disclosures on this. So have you ever visited? So there's where Jane Austen grew up. There's a place you can go visit. Is it Stevenson? Is it or something like that?
Yes, near Basingstoke.
Yep. In Hampshire. Yeah.
Hampshire, yes, I've got an aunt and uncle and cousin who live in that area, so we'd often drive down that direction. There's a Jane Austen museum in the centre of Basingstoke.
That's it. Yeah, I've been there. Yeah,
many times. Yes, so anything and everything. I've got commentaries on it. I've got historians' perspectives on it. I've got Jane Austen tea towels and all kinds of things somewhere lurking around.
Absolutely love it. There you go.
Now people are not going to want to be my friend anymore.
Oh no, I disagree. No, it's the aim of this special, as I've mentioned to you all, is it's one thing, when you've got we approach people for our professional capacity and but working on close collaboration, things like climate change and stuff like that, you do get to know people and you do want to know the human behind it, because at the end of the day we're building resilience in society with humanity on the face of climate change, right? And so getting to know the human behind the role is always a good thing. And I think that you've offered something really lovely there for the folks in East Midlands. And if listen, if you're in the East of Midlands and you want to get in contact with Matilda here, folks, and you're a Jane Austen fan, please make sure you mention that.
Absolutely. I need some friends.
Oh, brilliant. All right, Matilda, we're going to bring this chat to a close now with We Are All Geographers to daisy chain everybody together. So I've already had Cormac and Gemma. So Cormac from so folks, if this is the first episode you're listening to in this special series, so 2 episodes ago I spoke to Cormac, who is our colleague in the northwest, and then last one we spoke to Gemma, who is in the southeast. And so we started the daisy chain. So Cormac started the daisy chain with community. So that's what Gemma had to do for 30 seconds. Now, during the chat with Gemma, she talked about her background in zoology, being a zookeeper, doing education with regards to the importance of different elements of the ecosystem and conservation, stuff like that. So we got talking about the reintroduction of bison in Kent, right? And on the back of that, Gemma said, so you can pick her up on this another later and say, I can't believe you gave me that, Gemma. But so she has gone with the word bison for you for 30 seconds. Yeah. So Gemma wants you to just riff completely about bison for 30 seconds, however you like.
Okay, well.
So when you're ready, I'll start the timer.
Oh, I'm very ready.
Go for it.
Okay, bison. Well, one, they're huge. I've seen a lot of bison on many different TV documentaries. I think probably David Attenborough's talked about bison across the Americas many, many times. I think they're a bit scary, actually, but they're becoming very common. I know a lot of people that are doing sort of regenerative farming now and introducing things like bison to their crops. Apparently the meat's quite nice. I don't know. I don't eat red meat myself. Will I ever try it? I don't know.
Well, I do have a confession to make on the back of that. It might make you feel a little bit better. Is that I often go over to Montana and the Yellowstone area, and I've seen loads of bison. Yes, they are huge. They are huge. And you get these silly, stupid tourists who decide that they want to try and get close to them. And they've even had incidences where people try and get on their backs. I mean, these are wild animals that can charge at like 30, 40 miles an hour, But my confession is that I couldn't go to Montana and try a bison burger. I had to, I don't make a habit out of it, but it's one of those things. It's like it's from the local bison range. Give it a go. It's probably in terms of carb and in terms of its the bison. It's free range you can get really. The land that they occupy is huge. So I was like, okay, I didn't feel so bad about it, and it was a burger.
Was it nice? Did it taste okay?
It was nice. It was tasty. But I didn't. I wasn't like, oh, why did I not eat? Why did I give up meat, or why do I not eat meat anymore? Because I don't eat beef. I haven't eaten beef apart from that one occasion, for years and years and years. Because red meat is very carbon intensive. So, yeah. There you go. I've tasted it for you. You're not missing anything special.
Live vicariously.
Yeah. All right. So before I forget, what word would you like to give to our next colleague? So I don't say who the next person is because schedules can change and things can come up last minute. So I'd rather not say, oh, it's going to be this person next, because it's not 100%. But for whoever it is, you obviously know it's not going to be Cormac and Gemma, one of the other ones. What word would you like to give them?
I'd like to give them the word almond.
Just almond. Is there any particular reason? Did you see did you eat an almond earlier today?
I do. I like almonds. I was reading a book that was called something about an almond tree. Classic me, head in a book. Something of the almond tree. Can't remember. But I was thinking of walnuts, but then I thought maybe walnuts too crazy. But I think almonds are a hot topic. Let's go with almonds.
I'm going to take a stab here, right? I think the word almond is softer and a bit more romantic than walnut. Yes. Walnut. So I reckon because of your personality, that's the other reason why you've gone for almond and not.
Well, people did like to eat candied almonds back in the day. So
this is true. Yeah, and that kind of links a bit with the whole Jane Austen thing, Right, exactly. Fantastic. Would you like to give a shout out to anybody?
Oh, a shout out! Oh, that's exciting. Yeah. I mean, and I'll make him listen to this, but I'll give a shout out to my poor teacher husband, who's currently at school teaching teenagers how to do maths.
Bless him.
So, or a shout out to just any teachers. I think you're a teacher. I'm a teacher, and anyone that works in the teaching profession, it's a hard place to be at the moment. So keep going. You're doing an exceptionally good job. Yes, we do need those. A shout out to my RHM pals. They're great. We're a great bunch. Come join us. Come work with us.
Yeah.
And I don't have many friends, so I can't really think of anyone else.
You're so modest. Right, so folks, this is the point where now I give out how to get in contact with Matilda. So for the folks in the East Midlands team, so the email you need for the East Midlands team is CA, so for climate ambassadors, CA-Eastmids at nottingham.ac.uk. So that's CA-Eastmids at nottingham.ac.uk. And that will be in the show notes if you need that written down for you. And as always, folks, me, East of England, climate ambassadors _EA at UEA.ac.uk. So that's how to get in touch with us in our climate ambassador capacity. Well, this has been a lovely chat. It's I think almost like the sequel to us spending a few hours in the car in my EV on the way up to York, and to extend that lovely chat that we had. So thanks very much, Matilda, and keep doing
Thanks
the
for
wonderful work you
having
do. Yeah, it's been absolutely my pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening. We hope you had fun. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the podcast and give us a rave review. Make sure you share and rate each episode, as every time you do this, it helps more people find us and continues the conversation. If you fancy being a guest or have any feedback, follow us on Twitter at coffeegeogpod and send us a DM. Or you can email us at coffeegeogpod@geogramlings.com. Until next time, keep jogging.